It is a Monday episode of Locked On Grizzlies, and I am diving into the question, who should be the fifth starter for the Memphis Grizzlies? We're going to do a real dig into this mystery that is likely going to be a storyline in the Grizzlies preseason ahead. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, GG Jackson, perhaps somebody else. Who should be the fifth man? We'll talk about that and more on this episode of Locked On Grizzlies. Let's lock in.
You are Locked On Grizzlies, your daily Memphis Grizzlies podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you so much, wherever you may be, however you may be taking in Locked On Grizzlies, for being with me on this Monday edition of the podcast. It is I, Joe Mullinax, happy to have you with me. No DeMichael Cole, enjoying himself a nice little trip, and if you're going to start the dog days somewhere other than your job, then, that's a well worthwhile approach to getting a little bit of a breather. And he certainly deserves it. Goodness gracious knows, here on Locked On Grizzlies. So it is I, Joe Mullinax, with you on this episode of the show. We're going to be talking Grizzlies basketball for the next 30 minutes or so. I hope you'll stick around, and I hope that you'll hit us up on X at Joe Mullinax. You'll hit me up in the comments over on YouTube, wherever you take in the show, and we're going to have a good time today. Today's episode of Locked On Grizzlies is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Again, if you're checking us out on YouTube, thank you so much. Our audience has grown tremendously there over the last couple of years. Make sure you're also checking us out on Spotify, on Amazon, on Google, on Apple, literally anywhere you get a podcast. Interact with us, like, comment, rate, review, subscribe. Make Locked On Grizzlies a part of your NBA and Memphis Grizzlies content consumption each and every time that an episode drops. Each and every time an episode drops, becoming every day or to us here at Locked On Grizzlies. We've talked about it. The moment has arrived. DeMichael and I just about made it through last week, getting you guys an episode, your team every day. Now that we're officially in the dog days of the NBA offseason, which is August and the first half of September, really, we are going to go to a lighter schedule. So DeMichael and I will be almost every day. It'll be 3 to 4 episodes a week. There won't be a show tomorrow, for example. This is our episode for Monday. There won't be a Tuesday edition of the show. Check back each and every day. Check your feeds. We promise content will keep coming out. But again, we want to be respectful of your intelligence and not, just randomly come up with content to discuss, because we're trying to put out daily podcasts. So I think we have a really good topic to dive into today, and that is going to be that idea of the fifth man. And operating under the assumption that John Morant, Jaren Jackson Jr., Zach Edey, and Jalen Wells, when everybody's healthy, that's the starting four. Who is going to be the fifth guy? That is certainly going to be a story. We've talked about it recently here on Locked On Grizzlies. But again, this is a deep dive. This is an entire episode dedicated to arguments for and against certain individuals. And we're going to start off the show with the guy that DeMichael and I both, my co-host DeMichael Cole, Memphis Grizzlies beat writer for the Commercial Appeal, we think this guy has the inside track on the job. And it is Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, KCP. Now, why does KCP at 6'5" have the inside track on this particular position as the fifth starter for the Memphis Grizzlies going into the 2025-2026 season? For me, it goes beyond the numbers, and we'll talk about some numbers here from Cleaning the Glass momentarily. But for me, it goes beyond that. For me, it directly ties into and connects with the idea that Zach Kleiman made it perfectly clear. Memphis Grizzlies general manager Zach Kleiman. Memphis is looking for a particular kind of player. Memphis is looking for a veteran wing, veteran type, or was looking for a veteran wing, veteran player that could come in and bring a dog mentality to the Memphis Grizzlies, a tenacity, a competitiveness. Obviously, they tried that with Marcus Smart, and for a variety of reasons outside of the Grizzlies' control, that particular exchange, that transaction, did not work out. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope is their next swing to try to bring in that type of player. And Kentavious Caldwell-Pope is most certainly a veteran. He has played in over 10, well more than 10 NBA seasons. I think we're approaching 12 or 13 for him now. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope checks that veteran box. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope is still, to this point, an elite defender in the NBA over the last 3 seasons, 2 with Denver, of course, and then 1 in Orlando, one that was considered a down season with Orlando. Opposing teams were worse scoring the basketball when he was on the floor than better per cleaning the glass. Team scored 1.2 fewer points per 100 possessions when KCP was on the floor. And Pope also brings to the table a level of energy on that end of the court that has consistently been exemplary. 1.9% steal percentage for the Orlando Magic in 2024-2025, again, per cleaning the glass. Season before that, Denver Nuggets, 1.8%. Season before that, with the Denver Nuggets, 2.0%. He has not had a season under 1.4% in steal percentage his entire career. So at worst, from Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, you can expect an average to above average disruptor of offensive rhythm. And the Grizzlies could use as many of those types of defenders as they could get. Pope brings a championship pedigree alongside that aggressive mentality that has to permeate through this roster in order for them to grow. They need that veteran presence. They need someone that they can look to, not necessarily as a leader. And I do think that's an important differentiation point. The Grizzlies clearly have 2 leaders. They have Ja Morant. They have Jaren Jackson Jr. Those are the leaders of the Memphis Grizzlies. KCP can be a guy in the locker room. KCP can be a guy on the court. KCP can be somebody that can be looked at as an example of how to compete, how to be an elite competitor, having the pedigree that a champion carries, adding credence to whatever he says and the actions that he does. So I am very intrigued by KCP as that option. Now, perhaps you want to say he's not what he once was. He had a really down year with the Magic, and that's true. It was not his best, especially offensive season in Orlando. He shot the ball a heck of a lot better the seasons prior. In fact, the last 5 seasons, 39% with the Lakers, 41% with the Lakers, 2019, 2020, and 2020, 2021. And Washington even, he shot a better 39% from the field, 43% from Denver his first season, and then 41% his second season. And it dropped off a cliff a little bit with the Magic this past year, 34% from beyond the arc. Obviously, that needs to improve, but I am pointing at the larger sample size. That was his worst three-point shooting season since the 2015-2016 campaign. I'm going to think that he's going to bounce back a little bit. And I also think that he's going to benefit, as we've talked about here before on Locked On Grizzlies. No, Ja Morant and Jaren Jackson Jr. are not Nikola Jokic. But, especially in the case of Morant, he is an offensive creator that is going to have gravity to him. I hate using that terminology, but it's true in this particular instance. Opposing defenses are going to gravitate towards Ja, especially if he takes on an increased scoring load like DeMichael and I have talked about as a possibility. And there should be a lot of open rhythm opportunities for KCP and Jalen Wells for that matter. So while the starting 5 of Ja, Jalen, KCP, Jaren, and Zach Edey certainly have holes, right? You're lacking in the playmaking department. You're really counting on Jaren to grow in that space. Jalen Wells to a lesser extent. I think KCP has the defensive acumen. It's going to be really hard to score on the Grizzlies in that lineup. And they've made it clear that that is a space where they are trying to prioritize winning mentality. Defense comes along with mentality a lot of times. Obviously, being an elite athlete helps. Having length helps. But KCP, even as he gets older, has that mentality and that tenacity, that dog in him that you want to see from a team and from someone who is going to be a leader in your perimeter defense situation. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, the front runner for the starting spot because of his three-point shooting. I think it'll bounce back because of his defensive tenacity. How do you feel about that? Do you agree with KCP as that front runner? Let me know in the comments. Hit me up on X. When we come back here on Locked On Grizzlies, we're going to talk about Our second potential option, somebody that I was kind of surprised that DeMichael said was maybe the next man up for that opportunity, one GG Jackson. Stick around here on Locked On Grizzlies. Today's episode of Locked On Grizzlies is brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever wish managing your money felt easier? With Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control of your finances. Monarch Money is much more than a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. I have a serious goal to spend less on chicken wings. I'm addicted to chicken wings. I eat way too many of them. They're delicious, don't get me wrong. I'm a big fan of chicken wings, but I still got to spend a little less money. I'm able to track that much more easily, and my wife can hold me accountable as well through our shared Monarch Money account. It's time to get serious about saving, and Monarch Money is going to help us do that. We're going to take control of our finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNBA for half off your first year. So the second option for this starting spot, if we assume it's Ja, Wells, Jackson Jr., Edey, if it's not going to be Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, who I think is the front runner and has the inside track, GG Jackson was a name that my wonderful co-host, Michael Cole, Memphis Grizzlies beat writer for Commercial Appeal there in Memphis, Tennessee, award-winning beat writer. He thinks that Tuomas Isalo, the new head coach of the Memphis Grizzlies, is going to give GG a serious look. This makes sense for a couple of reasons. The talent is undeniable, right? We're talking about a 6'9" forward who weighs 225 pounds. We're talking about a young man who has shown the capacity to shoot the three ball at a high rate, around 35%, give or take, for his career in the NBA. Not great, but you would like to see that improve, and I think it can. He has all the potential in the world as a scorer in particular, and he also, at 6'9", 225 pounds, has physical gifts that a player like Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, or somebody that we'll talk about later on in the show, my dark horse option for that fifth man to start the season. Those guys do not have the physical gifts that GG Jackson has. And when you're a coach of any sport, whether you're coaching Pee-wee football, Little League baseball, all the way up to the highest heights of professional sports, you want to play the guy that has the highest ceiling more often than not. Now, that's not always the case. There's exceptions to that rule. But when you have someone who you look at them and you analyze their gifts and their skills, and you say that person can do more at their best than this other person, you as a coach believe that you can help get them to their best. And within that line of logic and reason, GG Jackson makes a ton of sense for the opportunity that he could be given as a starter. We talked earlier in the show about Kentavious Caldwell-Pope not being a great scorer off the bounce. He would need rhythm passes, shots coming off of dribble penetration from Joe Morant. GG Jackson doesn't need any of that, right? If there's one thing we know about GG Jackson after 2 seasons in the National Basketball Association, the dude can get a bucket. And that is exactly what this Grizzlies team would need. They would need a third scorer. Not because Jalen Wells sucks or is overrated, like some people say in the comments or on social media. That's just not his game. He's a lot more like Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Jalen Wells is, than GG Jackson is. So GG as a third scorer in that starting lineup? Absolutely. Checks a lot of boxes. However, what makes you nervous about this is the reality of last season. And to be honest with you, the reality of 2 seasons ago. Once upon a time, I said that GG Jackson was a, quote, garbage scorer. And I caught a, end quote, and I caught a lot of flack for that. I could have said it better. Obviously, GG Jackson is not a garbage scorer. That is the strength of his game. When I meant was, GG Jackson is a player who has yet to contribute directly to winning basketball. The numbers that he put up in his rookie campaign that helped him get to that second-team all-rookie selection, those numbers came for a really bad basketball team. One that landed in the lottery and was able to draft a player like Zach Edey in the top 10. because that's how bad the Grizzlies were. It was a terrible season. GG was a silver lining, but he was doing it on a team that was losing. When you look at GG's numbers this past season, a team that was not trying to lose, opposing teams scored the ball 9.8 points more per 100 possessions. That is one of the worst defensive plus minuses in the entire National Basketball Association. That is in the first percentile, according to Cleaning the Glass. And you don't want to be in the first percentile. That means you are at the bottom of the barrel. GG was a terrible defender this past year. GG looked lost on defensive rotations. He didn't have the effort necessary to be a high achiever there. That's a problem. He also didn't have as high of an offensive impact as you would hope for somebody like him to have. The team actually shot 1.8% worse in terms of effective field goal percentage per Cleaning the Glass when GG was on the court. So it was a worse overall offensive season in terms of impact and individual scoring for GG. And we can certainly provide context and acknowledge that GG had injuries. We can understand that this is a young player, still one of the younger players in the NBA, even though he has had now 2 NBA seasons. This is a young man that has played over 1,500 minutes of NBA basketball across 2 years, and he's not even 21 yet. He's not even legally able to get a drop of alcohol. And yet, this young man has played a lot of professional basketball in the NBA. So there is still so much potential in what GG Jackson can be. And the injury certainly disrupted him. And I'm sure that being asked to do some things like stand in the corner, catch and shoot, that's not the strength of GG's game. Can he do that? I think so. He has proven in the past, again, in less intense situations against worse competition or with lower expectations again. He has shown that he can do it. But GG Jackson needs opportunity and needs to be invested in a way where he can go and be the kind of player that he thrives being. GG Jackson is a really, for his position, solid rebounder. He's not bad in that space, especially offensive rebounding. The percentage of team missed field goals that GG Jackson rebounded was 5.9%. That's 83rd percentile, according to Cleaning the Glass. And if we're talking about a starting 5 that has a 4-man in Jaren Jackson Jr. that isn't the best rebounder, having somebody like GG, you could do a heck of a lot worse. He's a better rebounder than he lets on. He uses his frame in an effective way, especially as a 3/4 combo forward. GG will bounce back offensively. I have no doubt about that. And I think that him playing alongside Ja and Jaren in a lineup next to Wells and Edey, where those two guys take a back seat to GG being able to be a weapon on the offensive side of things. I see the vision. But does GG have the vision as a facilitator to be able to find open shooters when he becomes focal points of offensive attacks? His assist percentage this past year, 8.2%, 30th percentile among forwards in the NBA. That's too low. 14.3% turnover percentage, 13th percentile. That number is too high. His decision-making with the ball in his hands when the choice isn't, I'm going to go get a bucket, is something to legitimately be concerned about. And it's something that has to grow if he is going to be that guy. Because, well, he has the capacity to create better than Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. Pope makes better decisions with the ball in his hands. Part of that is being a veteran. He's literally 12 years older just about than GG Jackson. But another component to that is GG forcing things. And we've talked a ton in the past about Jaren Jackson Jr. forcing things, forcing into double teams, not kicking out on the perimeter. Can the Grizzlies afford to have 2 guys on the court that are offensive liabilities in that space? Jaren is better than GG, so he's going to get that call if they have to choose between the two of them. I'm all about GG Jackson, and as I've said numerous times, whether it was him as the 6th man before he got hurt last year, or whether it's the fact that the Grizzlies aren't title contenders, And it makes no sense at all to trade GG because you have this young talent that you should develop and see what he can do. But as the starter, I have questions. Let me know if you agree. Hit me up in the comments. Hit me up on X. Let me know how you're feeling. I'm still feeling KCP, but I will say I have a dark horse option. Somebody that we haven't talked about as that fifth starter as much. We will reflect on if you're an everydayer, you probably know where I'm going with this. Stick around here on Locked On Grizzlies. Today's episode of Locked On Grizzlies is brought to you by 5-Hour Energy Transfusion. Time to fuel up and turn it up with 5-Hour Energy Transfusion. It brings the bold grape, ginger, and lime flavor of your favorite golf drink, minus the alcohol, into a quick, energizing shot. Whether you're sinking birdies or just making memories with friends, this one's a hole-in-one for your energy game. Let's be honest, some days on the course are off of it. You just need that extra boost to stay sharp and energized. I have hit a shot 250 yards off the tee and spent so much time looking around for it that I didn't realize that it was on the green. That's how bad of a golfer I am, and that's how unconfident I am in my skills. I didn't know that I actually had hit the shot of my life, and that shot doesn't compare to the deliciousness that is 5-Hour Energy Transfusion. Golf is all about good times with good people and good flavors, of course. The grape ginger lime flavor gives you the best parts of your clubhouse go-to without chasing down the bev cart. If you go to 5hourenergy.com today, that is the number 5hourenergy.com. You can use our promo code LOCKEDONGOLF to receive 20% off your order. This offer is only valid until September 30th on one order and cannot be used with other promotions. The code is not good on subscription orders. Whether you're meeting up with friends or trying to turn 18 holes into 36, get the energizing boost you need to power through. Order transfusion-flavored 5-Hour Energy shots today. So today we have talked about the leader in the clubhouse, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. I think he is the most likely option to be the Grizzlies' fifth starter. We've talked about GG Jackson. DeMichael Cole brought him up, my wonderful co-host. I see the vision, and I like the idea of continuing to invest, but I have serious questions. I do not, however, have questions about this final individual that we are going to put up for a vote in terms of being the fifth Grizzlies starter when everybody's healthy, Ty Jerome. Now, I know what you're thinking, everydayer. Joe, you're from Virginia, and Ty Jerome went to the University of Virginia. You're a Cavaliers fan. Go Wahoos. You're just being a homer. To an extent, yes. But, dear listener, dear viewer, I want to stress, if you are rating Ty Jerome off of his postseason performance, you are missing out on the glory that was Ty Jerome last season. And DeMichael, to his credit, even though he has been lower on the Ty Jerome signing than a lot of people, he hasn't been as excited about it, certainly not as excited as me. What DeMichael has said is that in the regular season, you'll be able to count on Ty Jerome. And that's absolutely accurate. Ty Jerome is somebody that we're talking about a starter in the beginning of the season. It may not be the starter at the end of the season. Maybe GG Jackson wins that job. Maybe Cedric Coward, who we're not talking about much at all on this episode of the show, because we got to watch him actually play basketball first, right? Maybe one of those guys, Vince Williams Jr., returns and picks it up and becomes that fifth starter like DeMichael and I thought he would be last year. There's options. But Ty Jerome, in terms of regular season contributions to start the campaign, if you're worried about offensive productivity, if you're worried that Jalen Wells and Zach Edey cannot carry that burden, defensively, screening, rebounding, they do those role player aspects well. But scoring, you're nervous. Don't be nervous if Ty Jerome is on the floor. Per cleaning the glass, points per shot attempt, 128.2 points per 100 shot attempts. That it was in the 97th percentile among combo guards in the entire National Basketball Association last year. That was across 1,300 minutes of play. And that was with high usage. 71st percentile in usage per cleaning the glass, 24.7%. That was the highest of his career. He met the moment that the Cavaliers allowed for him to have as a sixth-man candidate, and he was efficient. This guy was a phenomenal passer of the basketball, 23.9%, above average, maybe is a better way to put it. Again, I'm admittedly a little bit biased when it comes to Ty Jerome. 78th percentile, 23.9%, while not turning the ball over. 11.1% turnover percentage. That's higher than maybe you'd like, but that's above average in the National Basketball Association among combo guards. And that, for comparison's sake, if we're going to compare who Jerome is quote-unquote replacing, Desmond Bane had a 12.7% turnover percentage last season for the Memphis Grizzlies. So Jerome made better decisions with the ball in his hands. Not quite the same in terms of role, right? I don't know that anybody wants Ty Jerome to be Desmond Bane. But Jerome can be that third scorer in spurts when the Grizzlies need him to be. Ty Jerome was also much better as a disruptor of offense than he gets credit for with the Cleveland Cavaliers. We're talking about somebody that had a 2.3% steal rate, 85th percentile among combo guards in the entire National Basketball Association, 2.3%. Again, for the sake of comparison, just for, us having fun, for friends here on a Monday, right? Comparing that to what Desmond Bane did last season, Desmond Bane in steal percentage, 1.5%. So Ty Jerome had a higher steal percentage than Desmond Bane. Jerome can score the basketball. The three-point shooting is there. If you're worried about replacing Bane in that regard, Jerome checks that box. Jerome is a defensive liability in some ways. That's fair way to put it. If his shot's not going in, he can be a pretty bad basketball player. Just check out that Indiana Pacers series from last playoffs. But that was a semifinal series against the eventual NBA final team from the Eastern Conference. If the Memphis Grizzlies get to that point this season, we're doing backflips, aren't we? Are you expecting them to make it to the conference semifinals? I'm not. And if the Grizzlies do make it to the conference semifinals, it's almost certainly not because of Ty Jerome. It's because of Ja Morant being an MVP candidate caliber player. It's because of Jaren Jackson Jr. being an all-NBA caliber player. It's because of those two guys and other pieces around them like Zach Edey and Jalen Wells making a leap. Ty Jerome just has to be Ty Jerome. He doesn't have to be an elite defender. He'd have Jalen Wells next to him. He'd have two true bigs and Jaren Jackson Jr., and Zach Edey cleaning up any mess that would come his way. The biggest flaw to my Jerome argument is not on the offensive end, of course, it's on the defensive side. You like having KCP out there because it allows for Ja to be that guy that defends the lesser perimeter threat. If it's Ty Jerome, it's probably him that has to defend that guy, and you're asking more defensively from Ja. So if you're trying to convince me not to put Ty Jerome in the starting lineup, that is the most convincing argument for me. Ty Jerome is not, I repeat, not worth limiting the potential impact of Ja Morant. If you're going all in on Ja, you need him to be at full offensive strength. So KCP taking a threat, Wells taking another threat, and Ja taking a little more easy on the offensive side. That's intriguing. Ty Jerome as a sixth man, in my opinion, is the best use of Ty Jerome. Him and Santi Aldama coming off the bench together, I see a lot of buckets in their future. But don't sleep on Jerome as a potential starter, especially if the offense is struggling. It'd be a great way to kickstart that side of the ball because Jerome is absolutely capable of being an offensive engine for the Grizzlies. Not the offensive engine, but like a side engine, a third engine for sure. Let me know in the comments. Hit me up on X. Who do you think should be the Grizzlies' fifth man? I gave three options on this episode. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. I gave GG Jackson and Ty Jerome. Should it be someone else? Did you get convinced that with KCP, are you thinking GG Jackson should be given that opportunity because of his ceiling? Or do you think Ty Jerome can really kickstart the offense and make it even more effective? Defense be darned. Let me know in the comments. Hit me up on X. Thank you so much for being with us on this episode of Locked On Grizzlies and making us your first listen today. For your second listen, find the Locked On NBA podcast where there is no offseason. Doug, Matt, and Hayes keep you up to date on contract negotiations, rumors, and everything you need to be the most informed NBA fan. Find Locked On NBA on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Again, we will not have a show on Tuesday. We're entering into that 3 to 4 episode a week rotation. DeMichael's coming back from his trip. So we'll take Tuesday off. We'll be back later on in the week, revisiting Ja Morant's international trip, talking about the significance of that, dipping our toes into conversations about Luka Doncic's extension and what that could mean for future money for Ja. All sorts of different angles we can take on our next episode. But again, that will not come out until midweek as we fully engage with the dog days of the NBA offseason. But we are so grateful for you being with us on this edition of the show. I am Joe Mullinax. Like, comment, rate, review, subscribe. Apple, Spotify, Amazon, Google, YouTube, wherever you get podcasts. Have a great start to your week, and we'll catch you next time on Locked On Grizzlies.